configuration. And this is something that, this is the question I wouldn't say the whole interview for me personally is about, but it kind of is. You've come up with a really cool engine setup. I don't want to know bore diameters or displacements or any of this kind of carry. I do want to know, what do you mean by dual spark?
Well, my engine configuration, a standard inline four, the inner two cylinders, the pistons come up at the same time, and the outer two cylinders come up at the same time. Now, that's not how they fire. So they'll fire one of the outside two. They'll fire one of them at one time, and then one of the inners, and then the other one of the outers, and then the other one of the inners. So they don't fire at the same time. Well, I've changed the cams in one, and this is not revolutionary. It's not something that I have come up with. This has been done back in years ago. People were doing this a long time ago. It's not something new. But I changed the cams into them so that the outer two cylinders, the inlets will open at the same time, and same with the inners. So, I fire both cylinders at the same time. So the two outers fire at the same time, the two inners fire. And then the next revolution of the crank, you get the exhaust strokes. So you get two fires go bang, bang, and you get nothing and then nothing. Now, it's not that it gives you more torque, because it doesn't. I've done a lot of dyno testing with this engine and my other engines. There's no more torque in it. What it does, what I think it does, is gives the tyre time to catch back up to the traction. So it'll fire two cylinders, bang, bang, and then it'll have nothing and nothing. So it gives the tyre, it gets a bit of a shake on the tyre, which, so it'll fire and then it won't fire. So it gives the tyre time to catch back up to its traction, and that's where the drive's coming from. That's why I run that engine. And I can get more torque out of some of my other engines, like a standard configuration engine, than I can out of that one. But I've done extensive research and development on cam profiles, all sorts of stuff to get it to where it is today. I'm lucky that where I work, we have a dyno. I can do all of that.
I did see a video, I can't remember how long ago it was, but I'm pretty sure a video popped up on the internet of you actually doing your cam research and your dynoing, and it was not a small process at all, and it wasn't a short process either.
No, it is days and days. And not only do I, test cam profiles, I test cam timings. So one of those videos you might have seen, a motorcycle frame that I bolted into that's had half of the frame cut away, and that's for me to gain access to the cam wheels, so that I can change the cam timing while it's still in the frame and run it again. And ultimately, you want to do all that kind of stuff on the same day, same conditions, so you get consistent readings.
Sensing a theme here with data logging and consistency and having a benchmark, so then the research you're doing is actually worthwhile. You're not just doing, say for example, you try a cam setup and that on a really hot day, which I know they don't exist in Melbourne, but then you have really cold days and it's days later, completely different air fuel ratio, different setup. So it's really cool to know that you're doing it in such a precise way.
Yeah, well, you need to, and that's the philosophy of my boss Phil. If you can test it and you can see what it's doing, then that's where you're learning. Flying by the seat of your pants. Put a set of cams in your bike and go for a ride on it. Did it improve? It depends on the track that day that you went to, whether it was a driving track or a slick track. You don't exactly know. It's too hard to tell. Whereas at work, we have machines for everything. We have a shop dyno. We don't guess on suspension valving. We know because we test it. We have flow benches for thwarting heads. We don't just thwart a head and say that's the go. We put it on the flow bench to make sure that it is. So everything that we do is tested. Before it leaves. We know that is the best of what our abilities are.
In theory, let's say, for example, you're doing all this testing and all this knowledge and that potentially uneducated people might turn around and say that, oh, how come you're not world champion every time it runs? Or how come you don't win every single title there is to win? In my mind, Speedway is so variable. It really is one of those things that's on the night.
Yeah. Like I said before, I'm not the greatest rider in Speedway. I probably never will be, but because of my background and what I can do, then I can have a bike it does what I want it to do. But in saying that, I've been saying this for years and years. The biggest thing in Speedway that'll help you win is luck, and it's got you'll have say you'll have five or six riders that are capable of winning a title. And they're all fast. And you look at the race times from the right, and they're all very similar in speed. But it all comes down to luck to the biggest, your draw. Who you've got inside gates on, who you've got outside gates on. What the gate was like when you get to that gate. Some gates might be boggy, some gates might be slick. There's too many variables in Speedway. So I think the biggest thing in Speedway is luck.
You're really not the first person to say it. And, being around so long in this sport too, you're in the alumni of like Glenn O'Brien and that, and they've said the exact same thing. Without luck on your side, you could have the best equipment money could buy. You could be the fastest person on the night, but if you can't gate or if the referee doesn't see what you're doing in a certain light or whatever it may be, you're never going to go good.
No, never. And there's been so many times where I've won every race for the night. Big titles, you win every race for the night. You go to leave for the final, and your air cleaners catch fire. You don't even make the final. Or you win every race for the night, and you get the pick of the gates you want, and you launch, and nothing happens because you've dropped through the dirt and it's into the dry part of the dirt, and your race is done. It's you can do everything, you can control everything you can do, but you can't control referees, you can't control the tracks, you can't control your gate selections. It's so much out of your control. All you can do is the best you can do and hope that you get something you want.
So what's it like to have Lurch from the Adams family as your passenger? He's one of the tallest passengers I've ever seen in my life.
That just means you can get forward more and back more. Best of both worlds.
Now, I've had limited dealings for the internet. He seems like a fantastic guy, and he put me onto this video that you guys had made, which blew my head off. I could not believe it. It was such good quality.
Yeah, that was a pretty good video. That's one of the big title or something, I think. That was really good.
Sorry, with these interviews, I hate asking the same run-of-the-mill questions that everyone asks, whatever. But with your riding and that, there is obviously low lights of your career, and there's times where it just got away. What's one of those ones that really bites you in the backside at night time that just got away.
Every time I've come second in the Australian title. They're the ones that fight. They're the ones that fight you. You know, you're thinking, oh, what if, what if I'd have done this, or what if I'd have done that, you know. Oh, I shouldn't have picked that guy. You know, they're the ones. That's mainly what I want to win an Australian title. And my mum keeps asking me, when are you going to quit racing Speedway? And I keep saying, when I win the Australian title. So if I ever do win the Australian title, that'll be the last race meeting you'll see me do.
I'm trying not to be such a technical nerd on this one, but it's already happening. You know, you call a spade, but I saw another thing where you were starting your bike with like an electric starter at the rear or something like that. What's the deal with your bike?
That's my engine configuration. You know, it flies two cylinders at the same time. So you've got double the amount of compression coming up. So, you know, I run over 16 to 1 compression in the engine. So, you know, times that by 2, it's extremely hard to start. So I run a Toyota Prado starter motor hanging off the front sprocket to wind it up to get it to go. When I first got the engine going, I took a four-wheeler with me everywhere to start. There's no way you can push start.
That's so cool. And if your starter motor ever fails, it's the most common car in the world. So as if you can't get one from Burson's or Repco or something.
Failing that, there's, you know, most tracks have got a four-wheeler, so they can give me a push.
It's so interesting. And I think this is the draw card for sidecars, particularly for fans as well as people in the pits or competitors. There is a rule book and there is limits, but it really is a DIY category.
Yeah, it's what it is. There is limits. There is limits on stuff you can and can't do. So, but most people in Speedway do pretty much everything themselves. So it is a sport. You can do stuff yourself. But, you know, if you're not that mechanically minded, then you need to pay someone to do some stuff. But you know, a lot of the riders in the paddock will do a lot of stuff themselves.
I'm dying to know this sort of stuff about everyone. What are some of your little routines or superstitions you have for racing?
Superstitions. This has probably come from Devin Gates. Can't have any green. He's been like that his whole Speedway career. Doesn't like green. Down to you can't even wear green jocks. And there is no green or anything on my bike. That's one of the superstitions. Other than that, there isn't any really. I try not to think about that kind of thing.
Mark Playstead just said something about grey socks. He seems to wear the same socks for the last nearly 12 years. That's his thing. But I'm always interested to see what people need to cope. And we are joking about it, but let's put it seriously. You're riding one of the most powerful combinations on three wheels that don't handle whatsoever unless you're going at race speed. You know, these are the things people need to cope with what they're going to get on and do.
You know, and I've had, well, you know, Mark uses the same socks all the time. I've got a pair of gloves that I started my racing career with, and I'm still wearing them now. So, you know, I've tried other gloves and that, and they're just not comfortable. You know, I'm just comfortable in those gloves, and that's what I use. So they've been repaired a couple of times. You know, so maybe I do have some, superstitions with stuff like that too. But you've got to be comfortable. If you're not comfortable, you can't ride fast either. So.
Getting back to that engineer's mind, I do it in a very basic form with people that I'm friendly with at the track where, you know, even though my current role is racing around filming and that, I still can't help myself but to go up, check riders have done their helmets up properly and keep them calm and make sure they've got enough tear-offs and that. you would have gone through that for sure on the engineering side of things with the race team.
You've got to make sure everything's right. And you've got to think of, especially in the road racing, you've got to think of every scenario. You've got to have everything ready. So, if you think it might rain, you've got to have wets ready. You've got to have suspension changes for that kind of condition. You're always thinking ahead. Like, if this happens, you've got a plan. So that also helps in the speedway. So even looking through your tyres for the night, you've got to pick your heats and what tyres you've got to run. I don't run brand new engines all the time. I use a lot of second-hand tyres. I do that.
That's really interesting you say that, because a lot of people's approach to a meeting is, especially if it's a title meeting or something, it'll be a new tyre every heat. Just keep throwing tyres at the bike, and that way it's guaranteed not to fail. But I saw that happen in Rockhampton with Brody Cohen. They put a brand new tyre on the back of his new bike, and leading the final out in front, he could have been reading the newspaper. He was so far in front, and then bang, rear tyre.
Yeah, but I don't want to diss anyone, or I don't know the situation, and so I probably shouldn't comment. But flying tyres is something that shouldn't happen if you've got enough air pressure in the tyre. And some people run tyre pressures too low, and sometimes that happens. So I'm not saying that's what's happened, but I discovered that years ago. And if you want consistency, generally I run with probably a bit more air than most people do. And when you say, come to a title meeting, you put a brand new edge in every race. Like if you've raced all season on some second-hand tyres and edges and stuff like that, and you come to a title meeting, and you go put a brand new edge in every meeting, all of a sudden you've changed the setup of your bike. It's driving more than it usually would. It's going to push the front more than it usually would, and that's going to affect your riding. So when it comes to a title meeting, don't change anything. Ride what you normally have been doing all season. Don't all of a sudden get to a title and want to change something, your setup or things like that. So that's something that I don't do.
I would say crucial to your approach to riding and all that. And I think it's just consistently coming back to the throttle control, because you're not needing brand new tyres because you're not burning them out with your engine configuration and the throttle.
Yeah, definitely. And that all depends on track surface too, to whether you're wearing tyres out too. But if you're rolling the throttle on and not spinning the tyre as much, you're not wearing them out as much either. You could be spinning that thing at 300k an hour. It's not going to make you go forward. So you actually need to back off sometimes to gain traction to go fast.
So in the 80s, the late 80s, the Mitch frame come along, and Russell Mitchell, there's no doubt about it, he's a very forward-thinking man. People might diss his ideas and that, but Einstein had his critics, you know what I mean? So the Mitch frame is still a proven thing right now, and it's been that long. But also the proven thing, or the thing everyone used to run, was the FZR motor. But that was the evolution to now. Where do you see it going from here?
I think people are going to have to give away the FZRs eventually, because they're too hard to get. But in saying that, I've ridden FZRs, and I'm going to have to say they're the most user-friendly engine that I've ever ridden in Speedway. They are forgiving and they drive good, and mainly because back in those kind of days, those engines had racing engines that weight, and That's what helps you in the dirt, so it doesn't spin up so fast. His weight to slow it down. It still has the horsepower, but it won't spin up as fast. So those engines are still very good, and where I can see it going, I'm still using engines that are 17 years old now. So later engines don't suit Speedway so good. They're a short stroke kind of thing, they're a high revving thing, high horsepower thing with no mid range. They're a road racing kind of engine. Not quite so suitable for a Speedway. And that's why you get a lot of people going to Yamaha cross planes nowadays. It's the same reason I'm running a big bang engine. It's seems to drive a bit better in the dirt. And your inline fours, if you put a Kazakh, like one ZX10 or something, it's just going to be a high horsepower thing with no mid range. And it's not quite suitable. That's the kind of things we're going to have to start going for as the older engines start becoming available.
I'm trying to explain this the best I can, and I know you could explain it better, but to go and spend $20,000 on an FZR motor to make it go amazing, as opposed to something, say, for example, even 15, 20 years more modern, the technology that's in a more modern motor probably don't need to spend so much money and parts are more readily available.
Yeah, like I say, the FZR is still a good Speedway engine, so getting away from that is hard. And there is the money side of things. FZRs are probably still cheap to build. You're still going to be able to build, a decent FZR for around 10 grand or something like that. The later engines, if you want to have, weight like an FZR crank, then you're going to build a crank. And this like 5 grand for you to start. I don't run those, but my engine configuration is giving me what I need, so I don't need to. But there's some of the things that you could do to a later engine to make it work. It was pretty right, but all it does is push the cost of it up.
The common myth I've heard the most of about you and your gear is that you're full factory Suzuki, you've got, Yoshimura backing and and you've got the best of everything, whatever, and you're the test dummy for that. But it's definitely not the case. It's like you said, it's what you do, you know it well, and you know how to manipulate those things to suit what you need to have for your ability as a rider.
Yeah, definitely. It's not like I've got back in Yoshimura or anything like that, but I do have a great boss, and he used to race Speedway back in his day with Suzuki water bottles and GS1000s too. So he likes the Speedway as well. So me and him toss ideas around all the time. So he'll suggest something, and oh yeah, maybe. But I'll always try it. Cleavy's another one. I talk a lot with Andrew Cleve about ideas and stuff too. So, and I've built engines around his recommendations too. So it's not like I've got backing from the factory or something like that. It's all ideas from everywhere. It's just what I know and what I think they work.
Well, like I said, we're getting to the end of it, and a lot of people in motorsport don't prefer to do interviews, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You're definitely one of those people, but this has been really fun for me and really interesting because I got to pick the brain of an engineer, let alone a sidecar racer I've watched on TV for a long time.
Thank you very much. It's actually been pretty good. I don't like these interviews that much, but it's been right. I'm starting to lose my voice now, but
That's okay. Well, we'll shut it down for tonight, mate. Now, all I can say is plug what you do, plug your the business you work at, where to find the race team, sponsors, whatever you like. You got the time to plug them. If you miss some, that's fine. We'll make it up in the description. But plug people who helped you in your career, where to find them, the whole shebang.
The biggest of them would be, Phil Tainton Racing, which is where I work. They've been a big help. Does a lot of machining and stuff for me. And, if you want something like I've got, we can build you that too. It's not a problem. The people that have been with me a long time, Brian and Mark and the Fitz, they've been with me a long time. I can't do much without them at the race meetings. People like Andrew Lee, he's been mentoring me 15 years or more as well. Andrew, my passenger, he wouldn't be doing it without him either. My dad, he comes to all the race meetings, drives us around, drives my bike everywhere. My girlfriend comes to the race meetings too. There's probably heaps more. All my paintwork gets done by APR in Mildura. He's done that forever as well. So if you need any paintwork, go see Dennis Kelly.